So we sort of started a new series last week talking about focus, and it's always sort of a good thing at the beginning of the school year to sort of come back and sort of reflect on the vision and mission that God has called us into. And you know, we've said it over and over. Our vision statement is printed in your bulletins every week. We put it everywhere when we do communication. Is we exist to share the love of God with all people in our community, to make followers of Jesus. And as we do that, there's four things that sort of become the missional alignment to help us accomplish that vision. Last week we talked about reach. What does reach look like? And it was sort of different last week because, one, I wanted y'all to come over today. I wanted to experience 4 amazing baptisms of students from Stratford that got baptized and gave their life to Christ. In fact, I think Wednesday night y'all had Sam, one of the baptized students that was here. And we're going to continue to invite those students to come on Wednesday night so that if they can't go Sunday morning, give them a place where they can come to eat and come to be a part of student ministry and get poured into. Because what I've told each one of them is that in this life, as we give our life to Christ, we're called to also grow in that salvation, to grow in that faith and understanding of who Jesus is and how Jesus uses us. And so part of that, I've issued a challenge to them to be a part of our Wednesday night and Sunday mornings at either church. And so what the reach is that how do we reach our community? How do we reach out and connect with people in our community? And what I showed was the video from annual conference. Amazing how this church and Dale were celebrated for reaching students and also being a part of a community and setting the example, sort of setting the bar of what we as a church are called to do. And that's to reach lives, to reach people, no matter who they are, what they look like, even if they're in contrast different than we are. And you've done that. And the bishop was very celebratory and excited about what we've done. In fact, we were invited to give that presentation before annual conference, and it took a while to get it sort of planned. But I tell you what, it was an amazing night. I have never truly seen a standing ovation for a presentation in my life that I've been with the Methodist Church. It was huge. And so that's the one mission and ministry of reaching our community that it is a sort of a saving factor for our 2 churches. We've got to continue to push and press into that ministry so that God continues to use us mightily for the kingdom. But there's a second piece to our visional missional alignment, and that's connect. So once you've reached out to people, once you've reached your community, once you reach your neighbor or reach someone in the community, how do we get them to connect to the family? How do we get them to connect to the church? Our end game is not to get people in pews, but to get them to connect with God. And the best place to do that, especially, is in Christian community, is it not? So how do we get people to connect with us? So as we talk about this, I want you to get your fill-ins ready if you're doing that this morning, but also we're going to turn to Romans 12 and look at verses 10 through 13. And here's what it says. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Our second missional alignment is to connect. And what are the key components to connect? Or better question is, what do I mean by connect? I mean, we all know what connect means. We connect to the internet, right? All the time. I mean, if we didn't have the internet, half of us would go nuts, wouldn't we? I'm just saying. Well, we know what it means to connect between 2 points. We know what it means to make a connection when it comes to flights. We have to make a connecting flight to another flight to be on time. But when we're talking about connecting as a purpose of the church, what are we talking about? It's more than just going to church. It's far more than asking someone how it's going. It's far more than a potluck supper or a Wednesday night dinner. According to the dictionary, connecting means joining or fastening together as by something intervening. And so in our case, that's God. Connecting is how do we connect people through relationship to God? How do we connect people to understand why we've reached out to them unless we're working on connecting them to the source of all things, and that is God? And we can do that through 4 different things. Your first thing is this: community. Pretty easy. It is by community. Well, watch this in Romans 12, back in the same passage. It said, be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourself. Being in community means to look after and the benefit of everybody else versus your own personal preference of what you need. It means to be committed, devoted, be a part of someone's life, to be in someone's life, to understand who they are. That's what community connection looks like. Truly to have community means to know what a person is or who a person is and what their life is and where they live and how they live and what their situation is. To be intentional about community. Acts 2:44 talks about the fellowship of believers. It says, and all the believers were together and had everything in common. What the world desires is a sense of community. Connection. How do we form community? The best thing to say is that community happens best in circles, not in rows. Community happens best in circles, not in rows. Well, what I mean by this is that you will have and form more community with people by sitting at a dinner table and sharing life with someone. A fellowship meal, sitting at a table round in a circle or a square table, sitting around it, talking and engaging with someone more than you would in pews. It's the truth. People learn better in circles than they do in rows. And so in that, we have to understand that we have been called to share community with those around it. To be the church of Acts in our community, to share community with others so they can form it. Now I want to be honest with you. When the church fails to have community, people will find community in other places. And that's just truth. When the church fails to provide true, authentic community, people will find it somewhere else. And I'll just give you an example. I just got done running the 5K yesterday. We made it. We did it. Ran the whole time. I did it in 47 minutes and some change. Which was really good. Considering that Sean does not run. But what I noticed is this is a group of people who I ran with. In the East Nasty training group, there is about 250 people. Now my group was about 15 to 20. But the thing is this group looked forward to every Monday night, every Wednesday night, every Saturday morning, and they would be there. And 90% of them do not go to church anymore. Because yes, it came up. Sean is a pastor. It always comes up at some point. And the thing is, though, is with these 90% of these people not going to church, what they loved was not the running. Believe me. You may like running. I don't know about love running. But in that, what happened was they were having community together. Same people, same place, same spot, running around in Shelby Park, sweating like crazy, hoping someone doesn't die going up a hill. And they had this community of people, and they looked forward to being together. And they were just running. I go to CrossFit 3 days a week, and with a group of people, the same people, and these same people are all about community connection. Yeah, we work out too, but it's about community. We know life stories. We know what they're going through. We know the situations that some people have. We have one lady who comes and she's pregnant and she's about to bust, and we were worried she was going to bust out on Friday. And it's just, but you know what? It's a community. And you see, this is the life of the church. The church exists within community, and we have to make sure we're forming community intentionally with people. It starts by reaching our neighbor. But then how do we connect them to the community that we all know? How do we connect them to God, the God that we all know really well? How do we do that? And we do that by being devoted, loving one another, honoring others above ourselves. Being together, having everything in common. The second thing for this is encouragement. Connection is all about encouragement. It is about when you're at your lowest of the low that you can come into a place like the church, in community, connecting, and be encouraged to continue on in this amazing race, or to continue on in spite of what you may be going through. Amen? I may be going through a struggle. I may be going through a sickness. I may be going through... Martha is going to need some serious encouragement if her foot is truly broken. She's going to need some people to pour into her and love on her and bring her a meal and whatever we need to do. Maybe that is just prayer. She's going to need that encouragement because I'm pretty sure she feels pretty bummed out right now. And that's what people want. People don't want to be fussed at about how their life is. They don't want to be spurned on it and looked at badly because how they live. What they want is some encouragement in life, because life is not given much encouragement back to people. And so our call as a Christian community, people who are devoted to a better, bigger cause than ourselves, has been called to encourage people to fight the fight, to keep on going no matter what. You see, that's just like the running group and CrossFit. I'm going to tell you, well, when you're at a point in a 3 and a 5K run and you feel like you're going to throw up, you need someone to come alongside you and say, just keep going, you got this. Charlotte, who goes to Dalewood, she had not gone to Dalewood in years. She left. She came to a couple events, and one day she comes up to me and says, I want you to meet this community of people. They would love you. I said, okay, great. Did I know it was a running group? No. That was side. Found out that. And then it was next thing you know, hey, why don't you come run with us? So we did. And I was like, hey, Robin, guess what? We're joining a running group. And she said, excuse me? But she came too. And then Charlotte said, I want you to run the East Nashville Tomato 5K. And I was like, all right, it's going to take a lot of work on this big old body of mine. I said, but yeah, okay, we'll do it. And then she goes, great. And I said, no. There's one condition. And she goes, what? And I was like, I'll see you in church every Sunday morning. If I'm going to press on to a goal, you're going to press on to a goal. She has not missed a day. She's found community and encouragement. And in fact, as we're going across the line, yesterday, she was the first one there. Tell me to run faster. And when she was, it was exciting. It was just like, come on, you got this. And it's just like, but see, if the people in the world, that's what they want. They want people to encourage them and say, man, I know you're struggling, but keep fighting. You got this. When you go to the gym, no matter if you go to the gym or not, I mean, when I go to CrossFit, I got people there who are just like, keep pressing. You got this. You got this. You can lift this. Look at the women. They're lifting more than you are. Lift more. But it is. They encourage you to keep going and keep fighting. See, that's what the church community is called to do. We're called to encourage people to keep pressing on. And see, and back in that Romans 12 passage, I love what it says. The verse says, never be lacking in zeal. Never be lacking in excitement for people. Keep your spiritual fervor. Keep your passion for people and say, come on. I know life's tough, but guess what? There's something greater. And I want you to be a part of it. Keep pressing in, and see, in that those relationships continue to form and community begins to happen and connection to a greater cause, and that is Jesus Christ, is what happens. That's what happens. If you come on a Friday and you have the chance to feed one of the football team, one of their Fridays, you're intentionally going to be immersed into a community. And there's going to be highs and lows, believe me. Every week is different. Some players are always high. Ontarius, who got baptized last Sunday, the boy never stopped smiling. But you get someone like Tank, who is going through a lot of stuff, that needs someone to come alongside him and say, keep fighting. Keep pressing. You got this. And see, when you pour out into a student's life like that, it makes a difference. Because I'm going to tell you, it may not right that second, but watch. You keep doing that and keep pressing in 2 years down the road, what's going to happen to that person? And they're going to remember. I remember that person who, when I was in my lowest of low, they were still excited for me. I was so bummed out and I thought I was going through stuff in my house and my family. But they loved on me and poured into me, and man, at that point in my life, that made a difference. And you see, this is what we're called to do. Because the third thing people are looking for is this: wholeness. A lot of times when I'm talking to you, I'll say words like, may the God who pours in us and gives us hope and wholeness. Wholeness. That is of the fullness of who God can be in our life. You see, I'm stretching you as a church and Dalewood alike at the same time to live into the faith potential that you have. Which means sometimes you're going to have to trust when it doesn't make sense. My admin over there, I'll do crazy things and pour things out, and he just looks at me with those confused eyes, and I said, there is a method to my madness. You see, I'm trying to press people into a faith beyond a mustard seed kind of faith. I'm trying to press you to do something crazy and ridiculous, and it doesn't make sense. And in that, you're going to live into the wholeness of the faith that Christ has for you. But you see, people want wholeness in their life too. And you have already received what gives wholeness, and that's Jesus. Amen? And you see, but people don't know that yet. You see, as you reach out and reach people for the kingdom, and you're reaching families, and you're reaching the school, or you're reaching neighbors, and then all of a sudden you bring them to connect, to a point to try to connect with you, to connect with a bigger group, and try to connect through community, and whatever that looks like. Maybe it's a meal, maybe it's a celebration of some kind. And then in that, you're beginning to encourage them. Keep fighting, keep pressing, keep doing. You're great, you're wonderfully and beautifully made. As you do that, then they begin to sense a wholeness that they've never experienced before. See, Romans 12 talks about this. It says, be joyful in hope. That only comes through understanding who Christ is in us. Patient in affliction. That only happens through a wholeness that happens in Jesus. Faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need and practice hospitality. Wholeness is an experiencing or an expression of hope in a person's life. For a person to experience wholeness, we must connect them in good and bad times to an understanding of who Jesus is. Here's what I mean. Something's happened in your life at some point, and you made it through. Maybe you had cancer, and you made it through. Maybe you experienced a death of a family member, and you made it through. And somehow your joy is still about you, even though you've gone through those things. What happens to someone who does not know, and they go through the same thing? A death, an illness, and you're able to pour wholeness into that person. I've been where you have been. And the only reason I'm still here today and I'm still pressing on is because I know who Jesus is. That's a wholeness that people do not understand, but you understand because you've been through, pressed through, and done it and been victorious over it. And so when we form community and encourage people, we want to help them find a wholeness that only can come through Jesus Christ. And this connection point is Jesus. Because it says in Scripture, but God demonstrated His own love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. We didn't have to get perfect to get perfection. Christ came in spite of what we had done. And see, people need to understand and want to understand how we are different. The last thing is this: compassion. Just compassion. people to empathize with them and walk through seasons with them. Romans 12, back in that same passage, says, share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Whether that's a food need or whether that's a spiritual need. To share with people who are in need, deficient of something. To pour into them. Because you understand what it means. And so in that, you are showing compassion just as Jesus showed compassion. You realize Jesus always showed up at the right time for somebody? Woman who is about to be stoned because of her lifestyle. And Jesus stepped in the gap. Showed compassion to that woman. A man in a tree who was the worst of worst sinners went to hang out at his house. That's showing compassion. Shouldn't have gone to his house, but he did. There are some disciples that followed Jesus who were killers of Christians, killers of people. And yet, what did Jesus do? Show compassion. Invited them to be a part of what he was doing. And so in that, you've been called to invite people to be a part of something that is way bigger than we are. And so I want to encourage you this morning. I want to encourage you, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you've been through, you have been victorious over something amazing. And so I want you to be an encourager, full of compassion, and share that with people in this world. Maybe it's just the person next door who can't mow their grass very well. Maybe we should mow their grass instead of just ignoring our neighbor. Maybe it's someone behind the church or down the road from the church, or maybe it's someone at Stratford, or maybe it's at the elementary school. But there's someone or a group of people who need to be poured into. And if you want to reach and then connect people, you have to be a part of the messiness that happens in the middle. Amen? Let's pray.